Hey crew, Coach Josh here with GarageGangGyms.com, and today this is the second video in our clean series. So if you didn't see the previous video, please go back and watch that video on the high hang clean. We talk about so many things that are pertinent to today's video. You need to know what we talked about there so that you guys can learn how to do a hang clean here. Now, if you like this series and you want to see how we eventually learn to take the clean from the floor and do the full clean, eventually the jerk, and eventually the snatch, please subscribe to this channel, like this video because it gives me a lot of motivation to continue to put out this long form content. Now, why might you want the hang clean in your training? For those that are weightlifters, this is going to be something that you need so that you can practice how to make sure that bar is coming into you, you get that good power position before you jump and go through your clean. But for you sport type people, you track stars, you basketball players, volleyball players, whatever, you guys want something that you can take and add load to and move it quickly. And that's the hang clean. In fact, if you do it the way that I'm about to show you, you may never need to learn how to do it from the floor because you're going to get all of the major strength and power benefits from the clean doing it the way we're going to be doing it today with the hang. You might not have to learn the low hang from the floor unless you really want to ramp up your weightlifting. So let's get after it. So today, talking about the hang clean, there's three things we're going to address. The first thing is actually a hook grip. The hook grip, which I'll be showing you how I tape my thumb for the hook grip, is going to allow us on our hang to start learning how to make sure that our arms stay nice and long the entire clean. The tendency is as people are rounding that knee, the bar wants to slow down, so they try to speed it up a little bit more by bending their elbows early, and then they come through. A little bend can be fine for some people, but for most people, if you are bending, you're going to bend too much and you're going to do more of a row towards your hips. So we're going to try to address that utilizing our hook grip today. The last video, we didn't talk about the hook grip for the high hang clean, but if you want to start incorporating that hook grip into that, you absolutely can, especially as the weights start to get a little bit heavier. And when we actually get to the hang clean, we're going to be talking about two things. One, it's going to be in reference to that tall clean position, or even the high hang clean that we talked about in the last video. So please go review that, make sure you're good at that, because that's going to be our contact point. That's where we're going to be extending from our hang. And then also at the bottom of our hang, we're going to be talking about some do's and don'ts that a lot of people fall into because it actually feels easier, but it causes them to completely change their positions to a position that they wouldn't be able to actually do from the floor. So let's talk about the hook grip first. So we're going to be taking our thumb and we're going to be wrapping around the bar and putting our fingers over our thumb, okay? Some people get really flexible with this and they can bury it deep under 3 fingers, but 2 is really all that we need. And our goal is to put just enough tape that our fingers don't slip off of our thumb, and then we're going to be trapping that bar in between our fingers and our thumb, and you will start to develop a callus. Some people, when they're first learning the hook grip, it can be pretty uncomfortable, but we need to build that tolerance. So I'll actually do my left thumb first. So I'm going to start at the nail, and I'm going to cover just the top of my thumb. In fact, in competition, if you cover the entire tip of your thumb, that's not legal. So we're going to wrap all the way around once. Then as soon as I've wrapped that initial layer, I'm going to move it down a little bit so that I'm now doubling over the knuckle. Then I'll go one more time around at the base, and then I'm going to make sure I tear this so that when I'm grabbing that bar, the seam, if you can see that, the seam right here is on the top of my thumb instead of where some people are going to put it is on the inside, and that's just going to pull. By taping your thumb this way, you may not need to ever retape in your workout. When I go from doing snatches to cleans, I typically will retape, or if maybe it's a little humid, I might have to, but oftentimes I only have to tape one time. So right thumb goes over near the tip, but leaving space. Once I overlap that one time, I'm going to move it down my thumb just a little bit, so it's now over the knuckle, and then at the base, and then again, I'm going to tear it away from where my hand is going to be grabbing that bar. That way, this will last the whole time. Then I like to squeeze it. I like to bend my knuckles and kind of play around with it and make sure it's nice and good. Then what I'm going to do, and this goes for every time that I chalk with the hook grip, I'm going to take that chalk and I'm going to rub it on the outside of my thumb. So on the outside, I'm going to rub it on the inside. Then I will grind the chalk in and around my thumb so it's nice and white. Then I'm only going to take a little bit of chalk and put it down the base of my hand here. Some people go crazy and their whole entire hand turns white. You don't need that much chalk, I've found. Just making sure that the inside and the outside parts of our thumb are covered, and maybe even the tip if you have a tendency for it to gum. And then again, just towards the knuckles. That way, as I'm holding this bar, there isn't a whole lot of friction and my thumb can glide smoothly over this bar. And again, we didn't do this on the high hang because I want you guys to get comfortable holding that bar. But now that we're in the hang, we are going to be expected to be lifting a few heavier pounds. And with that, we need to make sure that we have the best grip we possibly can. So in talking about that hook grip, again, we'll take this and apply it to the hang clean. What we want to do is, again, we're going to put those fingers over our thumb, but then when we're grabbing this bar, we want to really favor toward that thumb. What that's going to do is it's going to turn us in with our wrist just a little bit because we've talked about knuckles down before, but it's also going to help us keep our elbows locked out. If we're favoring the outside part of our hand, like we're doing a press, so on our jerk perhaps, we're favoring that, the tendency is for us to bend our elbows, and then it makes us want to row that weight in. So again, we're really going to favor the thumb and our first two fingers to make sure that our arms stay as straight as possible. So that you guys get a close-up of my thumbs now, like I said, I put some on the outside, inside, a little on the tip, and just a slight amount in my hand, and that's more from me grabbing my thumbs and twisting to make sure that the whole thumb gets coated so that there's enough play. I will re-chalk before every heavy attempt that I do or every major set. So if my working weight for the day is 100 pounds, let's say, if I'm doing sets of 2, sets of 3, whatever, before each set, I will tape my thumb, especially as that weight starts to get closer to my actual max. So if my max were say 120 and maybe at 80, I'm not really caring. But as I get to 100, 110, 15, 20, as I get closer, I'm going to be chalking every single set. In my warm-up sometimes, I don't even use tape on my thumbs because it's a light enough weight for me and I'm just going to keep going. So again, keep that in mind when you guys are using chalk. You don't really need a whole lot. So we're going to favor the inside, and then we're going to always, always, always start our hang day from the previous day's drills because we're trying to take all the lesson that we just learned doing those high hangs, doing those tall cleans. Maybe you've done this for multiple weeks, added a little bit of weight, and now you're ready to take it one step further. We need to use those drills to inform this next drill. Again, we did those positions so specifically so that as we progress closer to the floor and eventually take the clean from the floor, you guys know exactly from this step to the next step to the next step exactly where you need to be. So we'll start with our tall clean. I'll do 2 sets of 3 tall cleans, then I'll work into a high hang clean, maybe a set or 2, and then we'll actually talk about the hang clean. So just to remind you real quick, now that we have our hook grip, I'm going to bury that weight or that bar as deep into my hand as I can. I'm going to favor the hook grip and not the outsides of my hands. You can see how my elbows will rotate back if I favor the outsides. And if I rotate towards that hook grip, it's going to put my elbows in a good position. Then I'm going to start. I'm pushing against the ground. I'm nice and tight. This is that finished position we were working on with the tall clean. I'm going to pull, staying with the bar. I'm going to rack the bar as soon as I can, continue into my squat, and then stand up. Big breath. As soon as I can rack it, I'll stand back up. Bearing down on those knuckles, nice and tall. And then I'll rest. So again, all we're doing now is implementing this hook grip. You can start doing this on the days that you're actually doing the high hang cleans. But I love to start with just the empty bar, no matter what variation that I'm doing, even if I'm doing a snatch, a jerk, a clean, whatever. I'm always starting with the empty bar because the first set always feels terrible no matter what. Next set, you can start to lock in a few things. So what I'm going to worry about locking in right now is making sure that my lower back isn't moving around very much so that as soon as I pull, my lower back is at the angle I want it so that I can rack this bar. Nice tall chest. So that my hips don't have to move. I can just pull my legs up and get that turned over as quickly as I can. Again, if you want to know more about the tall clean, in the previous video of this series, I dive in deep. I talk about a lot of things that I'm not going to talk about here. Gonna catch my breath for a second, and when you see me again, we'll be doing the high hang clean. Okay, so the high hang clean, as it pertains to our drill today, we need to make sure that when we load, we're in that diving board position, right? If you haven't seen that video, go back, check out that cue. It'll make a lot more sense. The diving board cue, bearing down on our hook grip, and just keep in mind, my feet are nice and flat. My shoulders are directly on top of this bar. The urge is going to be to lean back, especially as we start leaning forward more into our hang position, is going to be to try to come way back here. So we want to stop that early. We're going to start in our tall position, and all we're going to do is get into that diving board position. From my hips to my shoulders, nothing changes when I dip. Then from there, I'm going to stand back up and flow through that tall position and into my squat. So I'm tall, dip, go. Gonna be tall, dip, go. Just using my legs, trying not to let my hips come through. So now we have to go to the next step, being a little bit more bent over. What is the most important is that a lot of people, when they do their hang, they like to grind the bar down their leg. If we were actually doing a clean from the floor, the bar should only touch you in one place, and that's in that high hang position. Most people, again, they're going to grind it down, or as they bend over, they're going to set the bar on their legs. In your actual clean from the floor, you'll be transitioning past the knee, and you're not going to set the bar on you and continue moving. That's going to slow that bar down. What that's actually going to do is if you set the bar on you, your body's going to have the ability to leverage and come up like this. And what that means is your shoulders are going to come behind that bar, and then you're in this awkward position of trying to get into our extended position. And this is not our tall, clean position, right? I had to ramp and come up this way. So what we need to practice is as I bend and tip over, the only point that that bar touches me is here. I'm going to tip over. Now, initially, you can put the bar right above your knee and set it there. I'm fine with that. We just need to make sure that the first thing that happens is as I try to lift and go toward that high hang clean position that we've practiced before, I need to make sure that I bring that bar up, then start to move it back. Instead of most people just immediately go back. Again, that would mean that if we're going from the floor, you do something like this, and we would never want to do that on our clean. So again, I'm going to be in this position. I'm going to move the bar by lifting my chest higher, because here I'm really passive, I'm relaxed, and because the bar is sitting on me, I can be relaxed. So I'm going to make sure that I lift the bar off my legs, even just a quarter of an inch. Continue pushing, pushing, pushing until I feel that bar make that contact in that point from our high hang position. Then I can go and turn it over. So here's what that looks like. I'm going to try not to let it touch me on the way down. I'm here, I'm tall, favoring that hook grip like we just talked about, big breath. Everything stays the same. I go into my high hang position. Then I'm going to let the bar come off my legs slightly. I'm going to tip, 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 tip right about here. Again, you can give yourself a touch. It should be above your knee. Touch, it shouldn't change your foot pressure or anything like that. But because it's touching me, I'm going to make sure I take my breath, lift the bar, it's off my leg. Then I can keep pushing until I'm right back to that tall position. I can pause. Then I can go through that drill. Just like we talked about with your high hang clean in that video, we dipped, we paused, then we came to your tall position, and then we went. After we dipped, paused, went, we started taking the pause at the top away, we dipped, we paused, then we just went for it. Same with your hang here. We're going to lift, we're going to bring it back into our position and pause, then we're going to go. Eventually, As you get more comfortable with this, whether it's today, next time, whatever, you can start flowing and taking that pause away. But again, in your mind, I'm trying to take the hang and make the hang clean meet up with the technique that we've already developed for the high hang clean. And again, a big important part is that bar, when we initiate this hang and stand up, the bar should not be grinding up our legs. It should come off our legs slightly so that as we come up, we can achieve the first point of contact, which is in that tall or that high hang clean position. So again, let's do a few more with the pause, and then we'll start taking the pause away. So I'm nice and tall. I'm in my tall position. I could just turn it over from here. I'm going to take a good breath, favoring that hook. I'm going to dip. Then I'm going to let the bar come off of my legs slightly. Going to pause. Going to lift the bar, pushing, pause, and then I go. One more time. Big breath. Away, lift, pause, go. Now, that pause too is a great way to teach you, am I in the right position? If you come up and you pull back too far and you pause, it's going to be really awkward to jump. Boom, you just gave your snapshot. I don't want to do that. But if you come up and you're like, oh, my legs are burning, my butt's on fire, holy crap. But hey, I could jump from here, you're in the right position. So let's do a couple times without that pause at the hang. And then I'm going to break down what we're doing with our upper body as I drive up. Because not letting it touch you is actually a lot harder than letting it touch you. And then I'll show you a drill that you guys can do to make sure you're practicing how to keep that upper body active and how to actually use your back to make sure that bar is coming back toward us so that we don't have to try to row that bar. We'll talk about that, and that's the third thing we said we'd talk about today. Let's do this. Take a pause. No pause, rather. Take the pause out. Big breath. Okay, so that drill I was talking about. I'm going to cut to having bands set up. I'm going to set bands up at about eye level. I'm going to have 2 of them, and I'm going to cross them. You guys might have access to a cable machine and a straight bar. It would be called a straight arm pull down. That's what we're going to be working on. I just like to use bands because as I stand up, it gives me a chance to really feel that band trying to pull away from me. I'm going to cut to that. So again, I have the bands about eye level. What I'm going to do is put myself into actually the high hang position. And then I'm going to favor my hook grip by actually turning my thumb down slightly. What that's going to allow me to do is really activate my lats and overemphasize how much my back is actually going to pull this back. Our goal with this is, at least initially, to hold our body still, to make sure that as I bring my arms behind me, my chest is coming up nice and high, and I should feel the outer parts of my back and maybe even in the middle of my back. So again, I'm going to keep my arms straight. I'm going to favor my thumbs down slightly. I'm going to get into my hang position, my high hang position. Then as I drive my arms back, my chest is going to stay nice and tall. At any point I could stop, and then I'm going to pause for a moment here because this is where the bar would be making contact with me. Then I'm going to reset. Again, from the hang position to our high hang position, this motion in our lats, in our mid and outer back, is what's going to bring that bar back. And again, if I favor my thumbs, my hook grip, it's going to allow me to keep my arm straight so that I could eventually pull. Now, we can actually start doing this from the hang. I'm going to back up a little bit further. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get in my high hang position in my legs. I'm going to pull the bands so that if it were a bar, it'd be touching me. Then I'm going to try to let a little tension go as I tip over so that it's above my knee. Then I'm going to push against the ground, favoring that band back towards me. I'm actually keeping my thumbs on my legs at all time. So my hands are actually open even though I'm pushing down through my thumb into this handle, because this is helping me keep my back tight, keeping my arms relatively straight as I stand up through a full foot. The tendency with this band, and same with the weight, is as you're going from here to here, the tendency is for that weight to walk you forward, or as you would stand up, is to round you out. So these bands, simply getting from here to there, keeping my thumb in contact with my leg, is very difficult to do. And if you'll notice, as I'm doing this, I'm trying to keep my shoulder on top of my arm for as long as I can, just like we talked about in the high hang position. So let's add a little bit of weight, and you can see how this is exactly the same no matter how much weight there is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand all the way up with the bar. I'm going to make sure I feel my hook grip, my chest is tall. Every single rep, I'm going to take a really good breath. I'm going to go through my high hang, tip. The bar is going to stay off my legs slightly as I tip to above the knee. Then I'm going to make sure, as we've been talking, I'm going to lift, pushing my legs, the bar's off my legs, pulling it back like we did with that drill. As soon as I make contact, I'm going to finish through my tall, clean position, keeping my shoulders on top of that bar for as long as I can, till I eventually have to come behind it and pull under. So let's do that. Knuckles are down. I take my breath. It is so crucial we lift first, then go. Because again, off the floor, if we're lifting, that bar passes our knees, but most people, as soon as they clear, they're going to go for it. We need to keep pushing, keep lifting the bar, lifting, 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 and then finally go for it. For some of you, it's not going to be very comfortable racking it, bringing it back down, and then going into your next clean. So 2 tips. 1, if you're attempting to do it, on the way down, our goal is to try to establish that hook as it's falling toward our leg. As it's falling towards our leg, we're going to grab the bar and pin it to our legs. If you're using a true weightlifting bar, they're naturally flexible, or more flexible than a typical stiff bar. So when it makes contact with your legs, it's not going to hurt all that badly. Now, if you go into it a little hesitant, it will hurt, because you won't pin it into your leg. It'll crash and slam and vibrate, and maybe your back will hurt, things like that. It's really important we practice this, because if we're doing multiple repetitions in a row, we don't want to have to clean it, drop it, reset, stand up, down, up. That's just a lot of extra time and a lot of extra work. And there's so much time in between repetitions that we kind of forget what maybe we did wrong in the last rep. In each rep, you want to be thinking what to do. So when you stand up with that bar, before you re-rack it, you can think about it for a second. Not too long, because this front rack position will fatigue and you will get tired, but you can stand there and say, okay, I pulled early, so I'm going to work on that. Grab it, pin it, stand tall, big breath. I pulled early, I pulled early, I pulled early. So as I go, wait, boom. Okay, great. Now you were able to execute something on the fly that you noticed from the first rep, and that's our goal. If we do 2 or 3 repetitions at a time, or multiple sets in a workout, every single time we do a repetition, we want it to be better than the last time. Now, another tip is when you're bringing it down, the first 50 times, it's going to be awkward and weird. When I first learned how to bring it down, I wasn't fast enough to get my hook grip. So I don't maybe only have 2 fingers on the bar, let's say. I'd lower it down and I'd only have 2 fingers. So what you can do, let me just clean this up, is if you don't have a good grip, you can put it into the crease of your hip, get that hook grip established, nice and tight, big breath before you stand back up, and then you're ready for your next rep. You take your breath, and you're ready to go. So there you have it, guys. We talked about the hang clean and how it pertains to doing the actual clean from the floor. We talked about the hook grip and how important that is. And please, you guys can use that hook grip often. You guys can do it on deadlifts, some lighter ones. You guys can work your clean pulls, which we'll talk about in a later video in this series. But again, really bearing down in that hook grip so that our elbows are in the right position, so it's a straight line. We can pull. Our arms are going to stay straight until we need them to bend. That straight arm pull down drill that I showed you with the bands behind me, you guys can use that every single time that you're doing deadlifts, every single time that you're going to warm up for clean, because it will keep re-emphasizing, that's right, I use my back, my posture really helps keep that bar in close so that my legs can do the predominant amount of work, right? And making sure that every time you initiate that clean from above the knee, we lift the bar first before we favor it back. Now, for those of you that do things like a box clean or a clean from the box, it's the same concept. If you're doing it from blocks, box, whatever, you want to make sure that you're lifting the bar, then favoring it towards you. Most people just grab and pull back on it and they fall into the same problems as that hang. Now, if you guys would like me to look at one of your videos, look at some of your form, please, you guys can comment down below. You can get with me on social media such as Facebook, Instagram, at Garage Gang Gyms. I will look over those videos for you and make sure that you guys are headed in the right direction. So again, like and subscribe to this video. The next video of this series will be coming out shortly. See you next time.